All right, without wasting further time, this is the tool I'm going to use for my code editor. That's Visual Studio Code. You should use the same so that we can be on the same page. Although there are other code editors that you can use, but I prefer Visual Studio Code. I already created a folder called shopping store, underscore store. I created it on the desktop and then I had to open it up here. You can just go to open folder, then select the particular folder and make sure that the folder is open. Then you can start by creating. And then this terminal you see here, I have bash, that's git bash installed. You can install it also. Just Google git bash, download it and then install it, then restart your Visual Studio Code. You will see, once you click here on this arrow, you will see git bash as one of the options, because by default it is PowerShell that is there. So we are going to begin by installing Next.js. But before we proceed, I want to quickly talk about all the tech stack that we're going to use. Next.js is going to be our major framework, which is the JavaScript framework that is built on top of React, which we can use for web applications, just like this e-commerce. So we are going to use Next.js. We're going to use Tailwind CSS for our styles. So, and then we're going to use ShadCN for components. So reusable components so that we don't have to create them all over again and again. We can easily use ShadCN for reusable components. And then we will use TypeScript as well for type safety of our data. So these are the things that we're going to use. And then Appwrite, very, very the one of the best options that we have. We have other backend options, but then Upright seems to be outstanding. Upright handles the backend for us in terms of authentication, authorization, that's role-based authorization, and then it also gives us storage for our data, and then gives us storage buckets for our pictures and other medias. So Upright is a very good option because you can easily integrate OAuth like Google, sign in with Google, Facebook, and the rest. So Upright is a very good choice if you're dealing with. And one thing about Upright, you can use it for both web apps and mobile application. So let's quickly dive in by seeing how we can install Next.js. So I'm going to go over to Next.js website. I'm going to type Next.js. All right. So, okay, my internet is not on. Give me a minute or two to sort that out. So, yeah, I'm back online now. So, Next.js. I just searched for it. Okay, this is it. So let's quickly just go through it. It has a very rich documentation. You can go through it to learn more about Next.js. But basically, Next.js is used by some of the world's largest companies. That's Next.js enables you to create high quality web applications with the power of React components. Remember I said it is built on top of React. So it is same thing as React, just that it has some other features that makes it to stand out. So now we're going to okay, these are the features that Next.js has to offer: built-in optimization, dynamic HTML streaming, React server components, data fetching, CSS support, client and server rendering, server actions, route handlers, advanced routing and nested layouts, and then middleware. So currently now there is the latest version of Next is Next.js 15. So we have had 13, we have had 14, and it's been awesome. So right now I'm going to guide you through the process of scaffolding a Next.js application, which you can use for any web application, be it e-commerce, be it point of sales management system, be it hospital management system, school management system, and the list goes on. So right now, let us quickly start by seeing how we can. Okay, let's go to the documentations. Now, this is documentation. You can read about it. I already give you a brief introduction the about the Next.js. Okay, before we install Next.js, let me just quickly introduce the other tech stack that we're going to use. I mentioned ShadCN. ShadCN is also a very good one. It helps us with components that are reusable so that we can have them reused throughout our applications. Throughout our application, we can actually have components like cards, like signing, like carousel, um, like so many of them. Let's go to components so we can see. This is accordion. If you are familiar with Bootstrap and that kind of um, framework for CSS. This is component based framework. So it gives us these components. We can then add it to our Next.js framework and then use it. It will really interest you. So right now, let's see the Appwrite I talked about, which we are going to use for our backend. So Appwrite gives us a lot of options. You can see build entire backend within minutes and scale effortlessly using Appwrite open source platform and authentication. Okay, add authentication, databases, function storage, and messaging to your project using the frameworks and languages of your choice. So Appwrite is a very good option for any project, especially the one that is going to be more than one platform, meaning that probably you want to create both a web app and a mobile app. You can have a single data source by using Appwrite, and then it makes everything easy for you. So these are the tech stack that we're going to use: ShadCN, Next.js, and Appwrite. So let's quickly. Okay, we also will use Tailwind CSS. Tailwind CSS is just a CSS framework, utility first CSS framework, and it helps to build responsive websites. And okay, let's take a look at their own documentation as well, and it can easily be integrated into Next.js. That's one thing about it too. And the reason why I like using Tailwind CSS is there is a version of it that can also be used for mobile applications, and it is called um, Native Wind. Native Wind is more like Tailwind CSS, but it handles the native code like the um, mobile application. So you can see this is what it does. Instead of creating your own CSS yourself, you can look at this like a ready-made cloth that you bought from the market that you don't have to go to tailor to sew. It's already made, so you can just wear it. Or the only thing is maybe you might need an adjustment and all of that. But Tailwind goes beyond that. It actually gives you the option to customize your site according to your taste. That is why it stands out among other frameworks like Bootstrap, Material UI, and the rest. Tailwind is one of the best among the CSS frameworks that I've ever seen. So right now, these are the tech stack that we're going to use. ShadCN, Next.js, which is the main thing, the JavaScript framework built on top of React JS, and then we're going to use Appwrite for our backend, and then we're going to also use Tailwind CSS for styling. So right now, the first thing first is for us to scaffold a Next.js application. Let's go to installation. Okay, before we go to installation, Next.js has two main options in terms of the option you choose to use. There is what is called app router and there is what is called page router. App router um, is the choice that we will use in this project, which means it is a file based route. That is, if you create a file, for instance, if you create a file called about, that about.js or .ts, which is TypeScript, whatever the name of the file is, that becomes the route. That is, if you say forward slash about, it takes you to about, and whatever it's in that component that is responsible for the about will be displayed to whoever visits that route. So it's going to be a file based routing system. Meanwhile, the page layout, the page router is not really the file type. It's not the file based type. So we're going to concentrate on the app router throughout this course. So um, let's go to installation. So this is the step by step guide to install Next.js. You need to first of all make sure you have Node.js, either 18.18 or later. That is the version that you need to install because um, Next.js is a JavaScript framework and it needs Node.js, which is the runtime that JavaScript frameworks needs to run on your system. So you need to make sure you download Node.js. Just Google Node.js and install it. So because it will require that. So the next thing after you must have installed Node.js is to copy this command, which is npx create dash next dash app at latest. So I can just copy it like this and go to my terminal. The terminal is this part here. If you open your Visual Studio Code and you can't find this here, you can easily get it by going to this area and then you see terminal, then you click new terminal and then you'll be provided with the terminal. Already I have one open. This is the bash area. I already told you earlier on that I am going to be using git bash, which is the IDE that that was added when I installed git bash. So you can also install it. It will be integrated to your Visual Studio Code rather. So right now let's paste that command by using the right click button. So I've pasted the command. So if I should press enter now, there will be series of prompts that I'm meant to provide answer for. So I want you to take note of this and make sure your internet is on while you are doing this because it needs to download all of those files from the internet. So right now we are currently installing or scaffolding Next.js. So it's going to ask me whether it should go ahead and create Next app 15.2.1. So I'll go ahead and type yes, that's why, and it will just begin the process. The first thing it will ask me is the name of the project. So it's suggesting for me my dash app, which I am going to go with. So my dash app, or I can decide to use something else like shop. Let's use shop. So, and it's asking whether I want to use TypeScript. Of course, we will need to use TypeScript. So I'm going to say yes. It's also asking if I will use slint. I'm going to say no because I don't really need to use that. Then Tailwind CSS, yes. It's asking whether we need source directory that will house the entire application. I really don't need it because sometimes when you use source directory, it really makes everything to be a bit rowdy. So I really want to see the my app directly without seeing it inside the source directory. So I say no. Then this is the app router that I talked about earlier. So we need it. So we're going to use, if I click no, if I select no, it will use page router. So take note of this. This is app router. So I'll say yes. Then it's asking whether I'm to use top pack rather. I'll say no. Then if I'm to use import alias, yes, it makes imports easy, and then press enter. So it will go ahead and scaffold a Next.js application for us. Let's give it a few minutes. While that is installing, let's take a look at other things that we will need to use. Like I already mentioned, Appwrite. So to use Appwrite in our project, we need to sign up with Appwrite. You can go ahead and sign up with them. I already have an account with them. So if I click on go to console, it will take me to the console, which means I already logged in, where I can create applications and create databases and then manage my data and all of that. So this is the console that it is taking me to right now. So if you will need to create an account with them. It's actually free. You don't have to pay, although the free tier is limited in a way. It's just meant for you to create projects for testing purpose and the rest. So if you really want to go to a production ready level, then you have to upgrade to a paid account. You can see the upgrade there. So this one is free. The one I'm using right now is free, and you can also use it as well just to create projects that you for testing purposes. So right now I am going to create a new project. You can see these are my projects, the projects I have created before. You can see SN1 Maths, Dual Easy, Project Management. I've created this before, so I'm going to create a new one right now, and I'm going to call it Shop. You can call it any name you want. I'm just going to call this one Shop. So I'll click Next. Then I'm going to select a region for the data center. Currently, there's just one region, which is Frankfurt. So leave it like that, and then select Create. All right. So the next thing is that our project will be created almost immediately. So we would continue with the setup of the project. Um, Now the project has been created. Um, this is the project ID. We will need this project ID in our project. So let's just leave it like this, and let's go and see the Next.js that we have been installing if it is done. So let's come back here. It's still installing. So I'm going to return back to the browser to continue with the setup for our project. Now we have created a project called Shop. Inside our project, you can create many platforms. Like I told you, um, Appwrite supports several platforms. That is web, Flutter, Apple, Android, React Native. All these are for mobile applications. But this is the web. This is the one that we are interested in since we are creating a web application. So we can add that platform into the project we just created because we need those platforms to actually run our application. So right now I'm going to provide a name for the web app. I'm going to just call it shop shop. Let's just call it shop. And then here I'm going to leave this with an asterisk because it will allow us to use it will allow us to access it from anywhere, leaving it. If you have a domain that you already bought, then that domain will be the one to be there. But right now we do not have a domain. We are still testing things locally from our local computer. So let's just leave it as asterisk, and then next. So the next thing now after next is that we are going to be presented with the SDK, that's software development kit. The SDK is to help us use Appwrite within our Next.js. So we will need to install this as a package into our Next.js. But before we do all of that, we need to go back to Next.js and see whether it is done. It's still scaffolding, it's still installing. So we can't really do anything. We can't install anything now until it is done. So we have to wait for it to finish before we can proceed. So meanwhile, we have the um, SDK, the Appwrite SDK, which we can install by using this command npm install Appwrite. And then once the SDK is installed, we can now start setting it up for it to be used in our Next.js application. So we will leave it, we'll leave everything like this for now until the installation is done. The installation is still going on, so I have to pause the video now and come back again.